Good evening, everyone. This is Ashley from Written in Ash. And it's a perfect night to read a ghost story because it's raining outside. I don't know if you can hear the rain. Beautiful, I love it. My favorite weather. I love rain, thunderstorms. I was hearing some thunder. Hope we get a nice thunderstorm, that'd be great. My absolute favorite, especially for reading stories, scary ghost stories. Okay, anyways, let's get to it. The story I'm going to be reading tonight is from the book Ghosts and Witches Aplenty. Horror Tales Our Settlers Told by Joesph and Edith Raskin. And the story I'm going to be reading is The Ghost of Gibbet Island. Before the Revolutionary War, a little island in New York Harbor near where Hudson River flows into the ocean was the setting for grim happenings. People who dared to speak of the place only in whispers and called them fittingly Gibbet Island, where captured pirates bound in chains were hauled there and hung from the gallows. In sharp contrast was the way people spoke about the peaceful village of Communipaw, just across the river from Gibbet Island. It was a model of pleasant community life, and its Dutch settlers, with the help of the English authorities, did all they could to help keep it that way. Their special pride was Wild Goose Tavern, with its sign of painted goose hanging by the entrance. There they came to spend their leisure time, smoking their pipes, drinking Dutch courage, and meeting their friends. That was until strange things began to happen. One day, a Dutch merchant sitting in the tavern with a group of friends was amusing them with tales about the antics and peculiar humor of the Yankees he met during his travels. While enjoying spinning his tales, the Dutchman reached for his pipe that he had laid down on the table, but as he tried to light it, he was seized with a frightful fit of sneezing. Emptying his pipe, he discovered that it had been mysteriously refilled with snuff tobacco. "Must be that brat Vanderskamp. He needs to have his ears boxed," one of the company declared. It happened that the following evening, a fur trader who had been away trading with the Indians showing up at the tavern. Feeling in a generous mood, he treated everybody to drinks. As the evening progressed, the gay and friendly company noisily proclaimed that he was one grand fellow. At last, wishing them all a good night, he went out to mount his horse. To his surprise, his usually friendly animal jumped and pranced, and no amount of patting and soothing could introduce it to let him mount. Finally, noticing that his horse was slashing its tail as if trying to chase away some stinging bugs, he got a hold of the tail to see what was wrong. What he found made him gnash his teeth. Under the tail was a clump of rosebush thorns. Who else but that brat Vanderkamp would play such a mean prank? He raged as he removed the prickly clump, resolving to warn the boy's uncle that he must restrain his nephew if he didn't want to lose all his customers. He mounted his horse and rode away cursing. However, neither his uncle, who owned the tavern, nor anyone else who could make Joesph Vanderkamp behave. He listened to his uncle's admonitions with the eyes of an innocent puppy, and then went on playing with his pranks as usual. When his uncle died, Vanderskamp became the owner of the Wild Goose. He was now a strong and weary young man with a quick mind and a clever tongue. Eager for adventure and not satisfied with merely managing the tavern, he gathered around him a group of daredevils and proclaimed himself their leader. No passing ship was safe from Vanderskamp's gang of pirates. They had their plunder in Wild Goose and celebrated their hauls with drink, song, and wild parties. It is bad enough that we can no longer go to the Wild Goose, but the tavern has become a disgrace to our village, the people complained to the English authorities and urged them to get rid of the pirates. Hearing about the villagers' complaint, Vanderskamp's servant and ally Pluto cautioned him to be careful. Afraid of the flat-footed redcoats? Not me, Vanderskamp sneered and ordered his gang to get ready to sail. They sailed back and forth along the coast looking for suitable prey. A three-masted schooner appeared and passed close by, but though they were tempted, it was too large to challenge. A while later they met a few fishing boats, and as such boats promised little in a way of booty, they also let them pass. Finally sighting a sloop on the horizon, they waited, then sent their boat headlong toward the ship as if they were going to ram it, but at the last moment they whirled their boat around, pulling it up smartly alongside the sloop. Vanderskamp and his daredevils lost no time boarding the ship and attacking its crew. The fight was fierce but short. After subduing the crew, the pirates collected whatever valuables there were and transferred them to their own boat. Then they punched a hole in the sloop's side and left it to its fate. As always, they waited till dark and unloaded their spoils. Meanwhile, the news of another pirate attack reached the people of Communipaw. "Must be the rascal Vanderskamp and his band," they cried. The sky was starless and the villagers had long gone to sleep when the pirates began to unload their booty. In the midst of the unloading, Vanderskamp thought he heard a suspicious rustling in the bushes and motioned to his men to stop. Peering into the darkness, he spied the glint of a red coat and signaled danger to his crew. Dropping their hull, the pirates scrambled in all directions. The redcoats, rushing out of hiding, tried to trap them, but they escaped under the covering darkness. All except three, determined to get Vanderskamp, the redcoats hurried to the Wild Goose and knocked at the door. A while later, the door opened slightly and Pluto's head appeared. "What do you want?" "Where is Vanderskamp?" they demanded. "He's asleep." Taken aback, the redcoats exchanged puzzled glances. "Asleep? Since when?" one of them asked. "I don't know," Pluto shrugged. "He had his dinner and went right to bed." "You are lying," the redcoat barked. "Take us to him." Resignedly, Pluto unbarred the door and led them to the room where Vanderskamp in a nightshirt and cap was lying sprawled on his bed, seemingly fast asleep. "Well, well," the redcoat declared, scratching his head. As they were leaving the Wild Goose, he grumbled to his others, "He thinks he is too clever for us, but one of these days we'll catch him with the goods." The three swashbuckling ruffians the redcoats did capture were put in prison. A quick trial followed. Then they were taken to Gibbet Island in chains and were promptly hanged. "We'd better leave the Wild Goose. It's no longer safe here," Pluto cautioned Vanderskamp. But the pirate leader shrugged that off. His curiosity aroused, he asked Pluto to row out with him to see whether the ship was worth plundering. Pluto hesitated. "That might be a bit too risky now." "Don't be a milksop. It's only an innocent boat ride," Vanderskamp replied. The weather changed for the worse as they rowed out to sea, but Vanderskamp paid no attention to it. They found nothing of value on the stranded ship. "It's getting late, and look at the threatening sky," Pluto kept reminding him. Not heeding the warning, Vanderskamp went on searching the ship, refusing to believe there was no hidden treasure. Darkness had descended when he finally gave up his search as they started back to the Wild Goose. Thunder and lightning broke over the sea. The water turned black and rain fell in sheets. High waves tipped with white caps dashed against the boat, pushing it off course toward Gibbet Island. Louder than the wind and louder than the wash of waves came a strange noise. Clank, grind, clank, grind. "What's that?" Vanderskamp shouted, but the roar of the sea and the eerie grinding noise drowned out his words. "Where's that coming from?" he shouted with all his might. Pointing at the sky, Pluto shouted back, "Look!" Vanderskamp looked up and for the first time in his life trembled with fear. Above swayed his three friends, hanging ropes around their necks, their rags flapping, their chains grinding in the wind. "Aren't you glad to see your friends?" "Surely the brave leader is not afraid of dead men," Pluto taunted. Jumping to his feet, Vanderskamp screamed, "Me fear them?" Bowing to the dangling pirates, he shouted, "Hail, my wind-swinging friends, coming to supper at the Wild Goose whenever the fancy takes you." The wind suddenly swirled the boat around and pushed it away from the island. Vanderskamp left Pluto to take care of the boat and hurried to the Wild Goose. His nerves on edge, he had difficulty unlocking the door. The tavern was dark and no one was on the main floor, but plainly coming from the room above was the noise of a wild party. The rascals, how the devil did they get in?" Vanderskamp growled, and rushing upstairs, flung open the door. Around a table loaded with food and drink and lit by the weird blue flickering of candles sat 3 pirates of Gibbet Island. Lifting their tankards, they were singing at the top of their hoarse voices. Noticing Vanderskamp, they focused their glassy eye on him. "Hail, old faithful friend. Welcome to our party," they called. With a wild glance, Vanderskamp took in their death-white faces, the nooses around their necks, and the chains on their feet. Come in. Don't be afraid of your friends," they insisted, filling the room with hollow laughter. Speechless and horror-stricken, Vanderskamp backed away from the door. In his panic, he missed a step, fell headlong down the stairs, and was killed instantly. Once he was gone, the Wild Goose closed and never reopened. Without their leader, the gang of pirates disbanded, and the village became peaceful again. For a long time afterward, boatmen would tell strange tales of seeing pirates floating over Gibbet Island, cursing, clanking their chains, and carrying on as though they didn't know they were dead. Years later, Gibbet Island was renamed Ellis Island. However, the strange tales about this haunted isle persisted, and boatmen carefully avoided coming too close to it after dark. Yeah.
Don't be scared. Like, subscribe, share.